So this is just a short addendum that I wasn't originally planning to make, but there was a very helpful comment on episode 12A from Zulu Kusaki that brought something new to my attention. Then I realized that this might actually be an important link that would help sort of sync up the episodes on the Great Ones and the final episode of the series. So after doing a bit of thinking, I felt like I had to put together this short video. Zulu noted that other lore hunters had pointed out that the face of the moon presence bears a striking resemblance to a cross-section of an umbilical cord, albeit one that's slightly compressed and distorted. After taking a closer look, I think this is absolutely correct, and my previous assumption that the moon presence's face might be a cross-section of the lower heart is incorrect. This idea appears to have originated with Reddit user D. Jimenez, an account that appears to have been deleted. Redgrave went on to mention this observation in a video with JSF and Egon of Astora, which Zulu was kind enough to track down, and I've linked in the description. As Redgrave described in that 2016 video, in both endings that involve the moon presence, the creature presses its face to the player character almost as if to drain us of our essence or our blood echoes or something along those lines. It's as if it's trying to feed off of us, just like a fetus would draw sustenance from the mother via the umbilical cord. I think this is a fantastic observation, and it's one that I completely agree with. But it is strange that the rest of the moon presence's body doesn't really look at all like an umbilical cord. It looks like the circulatory system, just like I had mentioned before. At risk of sounding like I'm grasping at straws, I think it might be both. And here's why I say that. I've argued that there are only a handful of entities that we can say with high confidence are Great Ones, the moon presence being one of them. I wonder if my original theory is correct, that the Great Ones indeed were designed to look like things found within the human body, but the theory was just incomplete. They also appeared to contain some sort of design aspect that is associated with pregnancy or childbirth. I think there might be something here, and we have 5 examples to work with. In addition to the moon presence, which looks like a massive circulatory system with the head of an umbilical cord, we have the Orphan of Kaz, which carries a hulking placenta and is a man-sized version of a fetus. It checks both boxes. It's something found within the human body, but also associated with pregnancy and childbirth. We have Mother Kaz, who I contend is a huge representation of the womb. Again, something found within the human body, but also has an association with pregnancy or childbirth. We have Abritus, who I've argued is a gigantic representation of the trachea and thyroid. But I have to confess that, like many players, including several of whom commented on episode 12A and on my Reddit post earlier this year about Abritus, for a long time I thought Abritus was a depiction of the female reproductive system. Abritus will rarely showcase one move. It's not an attack, it's literally her just moving. She'll vault into the air and slide to one side. When she does this rare animation, her body takes on the shape of the reproductive system, with her 2 tails kind of coming together below her to resemble the cervix and vagina, while her wings and tentacles spread out to resemble the fallopian tubes and at least hint at the ovaries. I cannot for the life of me find a video showing this move. If anyone can track it down and post it into the comments, that would be great. Or feel free to message it to me and I'll add it to the description. Anyway, maybe this idea about Abritus is an overreach on my part, but I've just seen so many players over the years remark about this resemblance. So, as with the other 4 examples of Great Ones we just discussed, maybe it's the same deal with Abritus. Maybe she is both a monstrous depiction of the trachea and thyroid while occasionally taking the form of the female reproductive system, something associated with pregnancy and childbirth. We also have the brain of Mensis. There was a commenter on episode 12A who said that the brain looks like the placenta, which I hadn't considered before. I'm not ruling it out, but it wasn't something that's ever crossed my mind, and I'm not quite sold on that, at least not yet. Instead, something that's always jumped out to me are the eyes on the brain. In case you hadn't noticed, they look like breasts. The dark iris is a lot like the areola, but the feature that most strongly mimics the appearance of a breast is the pupil, which is slightly raised and pointed like a nipple. Enlarged breasts certainly are associated with pregnancy and childbirth, and obviously with breastfeeding a newborn. And as you might have noticed, or seen other players point out, the brain of Mensis also appears to be composed of hundreds and hundreds of messengers. As I'll discuss in the final episode, the messengers also appear to be related to childbirth. Finally, there's Udden. I might as well take this opportunity to share my thoughts on Udden here, since I separated them out from the original video on the Great Ones. As many viewers correctly pointed out, Udden is described as a thing found within the human body: blood. The description of both Udden runes specifically state, human or no, the oozing blood is a medium of the highest grade and the essence of the formless Great One, Udden. This pretty clearly states that Udden can be considered oozing blood. There are a few things that have given me pause when it comes to Udden, though, and I've been incredibly reluctant to say that Udden is just simply blood, either within the context of the medical metaphor or within the in-game lore. I've seen all sorts of suggestions about what Udden might be. I've seen people contend that Udden is the player character, or that he's actually the moon presence, or that he's the source or father of all Great Ones. We as a lore community are far from reaching a consensus when it comes to Udden. I'm not really in position to substantiate or refute any of those ideas. I can only add a few thoughts that admittedly complicate the matter, but still might be interesting. As I mentioned in part 12b, there's a common assumption that Udden was responsible for impregnating Ariana. As I said before, there isn't a ton of hard evidence to support that, but that's not to say that it's completely baseless. It's not. After all, Ariana mysteriously becomes pregnant within a chapel bearing Udden's name. It also doesn't seem coincidental that the first thing we can observe once we set foot into Udden Chapel are the building's massive windows, which are an enormous phallic symbol. It also might be noteworthy that the formless Udden and Udden Writhe runes refer to this oozing blood in both English and Japanese as the essence of Udden, a term that in English can be seen as a synonym for semen. Last Protagonist's retranslations of the Udden runes also indicate that the term medium of the highest grade is probably better interpreted as a catalyst, suggesting that the blood is the trigger of some process or reaction. Hang on to this idea for a minute because we'll come right back to it. It's also worth noting that one of the two runes associated with Udden is the Udden Writhe rune. The Japanese text is evidently closer to the term wriggle. These terms are often used interchangeably, and I realize I'm probably splitting hairs, but I've usually associated the word wriggle with worms or other invertebrate insects that rapidly squirm or flail around. Again, hang on to this idea for a minute. The same exact verbiage can be found within the dialogue of the imposter Yusefka if we encounter her after defeating Ram. On a table in the clinic, the imposter doctor is experiencing some sort of strange transformation while positioned on all fours. She tells us, "Don't you see how they writhe inside my head? It's rather rapturous." In Japanese, as with the Udden Writhe rune, Imposter Yusefka's dialogue is retranslated as wriggling on the inside of my head. So, when it comes to Udden, we have a woman impregnated mysteriously within Udden Chapel, which is a stone structure containing a colossal phallic symbol in its windows. The runes associated with Udden describe him as blood, using the terms essence and wriggle. As we start to connect some dots with Udden and see these inferences to impregnation, the term writhe or wriggle gets me thinking about wriggling sperm cells. Let me be clear, I am not suggesting at all that Udden is semen. I'm simply pointing out that Udden isn't just being described as blood. From Software seems to be going out of its way to insinuate that Udden is associated with pregnancy and childbirth, and likely is responsible for impregnation, just like the other Great Ones we previously discussed are associated somehow with pregnancy or childbirth. The exception seems to be the amygdala. As we've already covered, this creature could represent the amygdala within the brain, or, as French viewer Cadamine points out, The word amygdala, or amygdale, is the French word for the tonsil, which helps explain why the tonsil stone and the head of the amygdala great ones are so similar in appearance. But I don't see anything that would be associated with pregnancy or childbirth. Babies are born without tonsils, and I'm not aware of anything unique about the amygdala within the fetus, although I've glanced at some research that a mother's stress levels and cortisol output during pregnancy can adversely impact the fetal amygdala. I don't really see anything there, but I haven't researched it very much yet, so who knows. At any rate, I'm starting to wonder if there's a theme here with the great ones that I had totally missed before. Because some of the main conclusions that I'll make in the final episode are so closely associated with pregnancy, childbirth, and fetuses, I think this is intentional, I think it's important. So the more information I can get, I think will just help to solidify some of the conclusions that I'll present there.